Okay, everybody, the screen is being prepared for us, but I know we are live on Facebook. So let's get this started. Another episode of Ordinary Extraordinary. Today with another ordinary, extraordinary person who will introduce himself. I met him through Right Foundation for the Realization of Human Potential. And again, what he does excites me and makes me wonder who he is. So this is my easiest way to get to know the guy, and he will tell you everything about himself. So Rich Lyons. Rich, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty decent. And let's just dive right into it. Just tell us about who you are and what you do, and then I'll ask you more questions.
Sure. So Rich Lyons, currently I lead digital customer experience for Capgemini. I'm also the global offer leader for commerce. I started my own business, Lyons Consulting Group, back in 2003, and we were e-commerce digital agency that then sold to Capgemini just over 2 years ago, about 2 years and 3 months ago. I'm also a husband, 30 years this year, a father of 2 daughters, 21 and 23, two grown daughters, and I do teach courses and am adjunct faculty and on the board at the Right Foundation. So there's a quick summary.
There you go. That's a perfect quick summary. All right. So I did have some more questions now that you said who you are and what you do, but let's move on with the structure first, and then I'll ask you more questions.
Great.
So my next question is, how did you get to be where you are, and like what pops in your mind as far as the hard stuff, right? The obstacles that you have faced and how you overcame those obstacles.
Yeah, I think part of how I got to where I am and where I'm still, I guess, trying to achieve things, right, is always setting goals, having goals. Like I was always a big BHAG person, if you remember Jim Collins, big, hairy, audacious goals, like setting goals and then really driving to those goals and having support from people to really make those goals, because you can't do it on your own, especially having my own business. I always had a business coach. Like I used Dr. Bob Wright, and he was a great mentor and business coach. And I needed that. I needed someone to talk to. I needed someone to bounce ideas off of. And I really, sometimes to get out of my way, right? And when I mentioned BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals, one of the reasons to set those are so I can get beyond myself, get beyond my limiting beliefs. Because part of that goal is it's something you don't think is achievable. So set a goal that you really don't believe you can ever hit, and then try to hit it. So that forces you to think differently. And it also, by putting a goal out like that, it gets you support. You garner support from other people, and other people will help me get out of my own way, if that makes sense. So I think some of the hard things are that, like how, when you don't believe you can do something, how do you change that belief? How do you really have an intention to make, like, I'm going to make this happen, and I'm going to pull out all stops. I'm going to fully commit and fully apply myself to make it happen. And that's not easy, because we all have questions. I always had questions. And how do you have someone to talk through those questions when I'm questioning myself, when I'm questioning my own capability? Who do I talk to, and who do I get support to get beyond those hurdles, and sometimes, get beyond myself. So I think having a coach was always very helpful, having supportive people in my life, but also doing what I would say was my personal work, looking at social and emotional intelligence and continuing to kind of work into those core limiting beliefs. I was raised, I had, certain beliefs. How do I get beyond that? So I can maximize my potential, which is something I've always focused on. I was an electrical engineer undergrad, so I think about potential, and I think about current and electricity, and how can I maximize my potential and be kind of a clear channel so purpose can flow through me. And that doesn't end. That's something that I continue to do, and hopefully will continue to do until I die.
Well, that's the goal, right? As far as when we realized, when we were told, I don't know about you, but when I was told there was no end to it, I was kind of like hoping that will be an arrival point where I could just rest on my laurels, you know. But I was
Right.
like, no,
That doesn't happen. Yeah, that doesn't happen, right?
it's gonna just get scarier, and the goals are gonna get bigger. I'm
It
like,
does seem
shoot,
like that.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which is actually, once you, I guess in your case, you can testify that once you get used to this idea, it becomes exciting, right? It
I agree,
becomes,
and it is a choice, for me choosing to live life as an adventure. An adventure, sometimes has downs and sometimes has ups, right? And it's all part of life. And that kind of acknowledging that I don't always understand why things are happening, but I kind of look at it like keep swinging at what's in front of me,
yep,
and keep trying and keep swinging. I don't know what's going to evolve, and I don't have to know way down the road what's going to happen, but I do know what's going on right now,
yeah,
and I can apply myself to that and have an intention in the moment, and I can control how I react and how I act, and I think that's important.
yep, that's right, that's right. Now, when I heard you say that you had the solutions, right, like the coach, or you knowing where you want to go, you're setting the goals that were beyond your imagination. I want to hear, honestly, I want to hear like the biggest pushback, like what was your greatest obstacle that you wouldn't have overcome, be you yourself, you know what I mean, if you were yourself, by yourself, without that help? What was that obstacle that comes to mind?
Well, I mean, this isn't quite the answer you're probably looking for, but the biggest
Mhm,
obstacle was always me, to be
mhm,
honest. When I set that goal, I set a goal when I first started my business back in 2003 to be a $50 million Midwest-based IT consulting firm by the time I was 50,
mhm,
right? And I didn't quite hit it, and I had a lot of evolution that happened in that, because we weren't just Midwest based. So that evolved where I had to change that strategy where we had offices, 8 offices around the country. We eventually opened an office also in the UK. We had a team in the Ukraine as well. So that changed. We weren't an IT consulting firm. We had evolved into a digital agency, and specifically a digital commerce agency. So on the way things changed, but the goal was still there. And I think we were, I don't know, 58 million or something by the time I was 51, but we didn't hit 50 by 50. But there's no way. I was starting at zero. I wasn't even $1 million. So I thought there's no way I'm going to hit that. But with intention and continuing to, get over my barriers and being open to what's being presented to me and finding ways to make things work, because there's a lot of barriers. Like you said, we hired salespeople. It didn't really work out. So we had to fire salespeople.
mhm,
Where there were a lot of things that, when the market crashed in 08, 09, it was a terrible time, right? The banks called, we had a loan, the banks called in our loan.
mhm,
There's a lot of things that happen that, you think, oh, this is it, I'm done. We had a money back guarantee we would give people. And I remember one of our customers, they were going through a hard time. So they said, we want our money back. And this was right at the end of the project, right at
mhm.
the end of the project. And I had to live to my word. So I remember I wrote this, $50,000 check, FedExed it to the guy, and I thought we were going out of business.
Mhm,
I called my friend. I remember I was literally crying, and I'm like,
mhm.
I think we're going to go out of business, but I had to do it. It was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And you get through those kind of, moments, and it was always about, for me, about putting the customer first, integrity, making sure that we're collaborative and really focusing on how do I maximize my potential? How do I help my employees maximize their potential? And how do we help our customers maximize their potential? And if I could keep focused on the customer and keep all of us focused on what's best for the customer, I just had to trust that it was going to work out.
And
And
it
that's
did.
not to say there wasn't a question all the time, right? Because,
Yeah.
some of those things happen and you're like, is it really going to work out? So having people around you that can kind of kick your butt when you need it, and also comfort you on the other side when you need it. I see it like boxing, right? You go back to the corner. Sometimes your coach, needs to patch up your wounds you know, and other times your coach has to kick you in the butt and say, what are you doing? Wake up.
Mhm.
You're in a fight here. Let's go. So having supportive people around, I would have never been able to make it without, my coach, Dr. Bob Wright, and some of the social and emotional work that I was doing, because otherwise I wouldn't get over myself. I hate to say it.
That's right. Who were other people besides Dr. Bob Wright that had your back?
Yeah, I mean, obviously my wife, we've been married for 30 years, so having support from my wife and even my children, right? Because I was also a father, and early on, I participated. I was an AYSO soccer coach. Like, I wanted to be a very participatory father. So getting support from them and knowing what I was doing and knowing what I was going through. I had good friends, that really supported me. Scott Steven, was on my advisory board. I also had a leadership group that I was in. So that was very helpful. Don Delves, John Davidoff, Mike Swell, Stan Smith. I mean, there's a big leadership group, Brian LaPerriere, Jeff Golden, that held vision for me. I joined an entrepreneurs group for a while and made some really lifelong friends there of other entrepreneurs that really held vision for me. Started working actually with one, became my COO and my partner in my business, Norm Alisi. So there were, really surrounding myself with people, and in my case, other entrepreneurs that could understand what I was going through, because not everyone understands the pressure that exists when you're running your own business.
Absolutely. All right, man. Thank you. So the next question comes kind of right, as a logical consequence of that. So now, being you, who you are today, and enjoying being here and now, what makes your heart sing?
I think for me, it's connection, and I would say it's funny when you talk about circuits and being an electrical engineer, and, everything's connected. We all have energy, we all have electromagnetic fields. But I absolutely think about, what makes my heart sing is when I really connect with someone. And that's a choice I can make all the time. You know what I mean? Think about it. I always use an example of getting in an elevator, and everyone's looking up at the screen. Because now the elevators all have screens, right? So everyone's watching the TV in the corner and not interacting at all. And I think, what really makes my heart sing is if I can make a little bit of a difference, if I can, make a connection, because it makes me feel good. I feel more nourished, but make a connection with someone so I don't feel like I'm alone in the world. I think, I always thought, well, you're supposed to be stoic as a man, right? This old model of manhood, you're not supposed to have feelings. You're not supposed to want anything. You're not supposed to even want connection, right? See, you have a connection with your cat.
Yeah. She just came to connect,
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's, that's what makes my heart sing. And I kind of, as a mission for myself, want to see, if I could be the biggest blessing I could be. And in terms of just connecting with people, we're all human beings. We're all hungry, whether we acknowledge it or not.
That's right. And thank you for voicing it, because as a man, I would usually be afraid to say, oh, I am hungry, or
Right.
I crave connection or something like this. It would just make me look not manly, right? Yeah. So, but deep inside, when I talk to men, not only at Right Foundation where we work on our transformation all the time, but just regular men I teach several courses, right? And when they are finally opening up to you, and when they see that it's safe to talk from their heart, we all have the same thing. Just like you said, we all have the same thing in common, and this makes us whole, as far as I understand. And I love how you said, just making a difference as a goal, because you like it, and there's nothing shameful in you liking it first. That was a revelation for me. Because if you are in a dissatisfaction, how can you satisfy anybody else?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, perfect. So my last question to you is, there are people out there, right? Statistically, they say by like 90% of people in 2030 will be depressed or like almost diagnosed. It's just like a scary number, of course. I don't know who backs it up, but the idea is we go around and see those depressed people for whatever reason. So what would you say to people who are going through hardship, who don't see, what you see now? And maybe you could say what helped you see what you didn't see before.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I've known, unfortunately, a number of people, and specifically men, that have committed suicide. Right, And so when I first grew this beard, it was for Movember, right? And it was more about, raising awareness about men's, suicide and suicide specifically for men. And I think, part of it is feelings. We kind of touched upon it, hunger, but, really feelings, fear, hurt, anger, sadness, joy, love, and I think as men, and I don't mean to leave women out here, but as men, we're kind of taught, like you just said, if you're afraid, then there's something wrong with you. You're not strong, and that's a problem. And if you're hurt, you don't acknowledge your hurt. You don't let anyone understand that you're hurt or sad, because that's weakness. Mm-hmm. And I think to reframe that, like, there is the old model, and not to get rid of it, but to add a new model to it, which includes social emotional intelligence, which includes having feelings. Because think about it in relationships, and especially with my relationship with my wife, it didn't work very well for me just to try to be tough and not have feelings and be stoic. Mm-hmm. It didn't work at all. Like, we would not be married, almost 30 years now, if that's the way I was. So I had to come up with acceptance that it's okay to be afraid. As a matter of fact, it's part of my gift and a strength, because fear has a message. Am I in danger? Have I not prepared all the way for the presentation I'm going into? Is it a real fear or an imagined fear? Maybe I need to present more. And then, I go back to the old REM song, everybody hurts. You remember that song? Everybody hurts sometimes. And I think if we could accept that and understand that we all have hurts, it's just a part of life. It's not a negative. It's not a positive. It just is, right? We're all hurt. We all get angry. We're all afraid. And for me, I had to kind of accept I'm part of the human race. I'm not a robot. I'm actually a human being, and I connect a lot of times through my fear, through my hurt, through my sadness. And if I use my anger intentionally, I can get a lot done and really support people as well. So I think responsibility is an important part of having feelings. But I do think the acceptance and acknowledgement of that is an amazing thing, that we all have feelings, and, everybody hurts sometimes. And, Dr. Bob had said something to me a long time ago that I still hold on to. He said, however you wake up in the morning, you could wake up feeling, when people talk about waking up on the wrong side of the bed, you can wake up feeling afraid or sad or something's really bothering you. And he said to me, you still get to choose how you want your day to be, because you aren't your feelings. So I can wake up afraid, and I can wake up sad, and that's okay. And I can still look myself in the mirror and decide I'm going to have a great day. And I'm choosing that day. Choice, there's awareness and there's choice, right? So obviously being aware of our feelings and accepting those feelings is number one. But then choosing, because it's my choice how I'm going to make this day.
Absolutely. Great. So what I heard is that, it's okay to hurt. It's okay to know you hurt. And it's good to just reach out and create, like you created, the network, right?
Yeah.
A network of friends, people.
Of support. Yeah.
Like-minded people who will accept you for whatever you are, the old cool man or the new sensitive man, because
right.
that's part
It's
of
both.
Rich Lyons. Yeah, it's both, and there's nothing wrong with that. Well, thank you very much, Rich. I really appreciate you spending time with us and sharing with people. And I want more people to see and hear you. And I will invite you back, when we go the second round. I don't know when it's going to happen, but thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you, everybody, for watching.
Thank you as well.
All
thank
right.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.